Hey, Jeff. Where's Jeff? Can you take a picture, please? Let Dean get there first.
Summer as a vacation, family get together, lots of
Park it, Dean. Okay, call the meeting to order. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Jeff, would you kindly lead us? Fire.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this gorgeous day that you've given us today. We just ask your blessing on our meeting and that we would be successful in getting the agenda accomplished today and whatever we need to get done, would get done. I thank you for the men that are around the table to my left. I thank you for their service, their willingness to serve on a submarine for be qualified for that long. We just thank you for them and their lives and their dedication to our country. I lift up those in our club that are sick. I know Bruce Marston's wife just started chemo. Just give them extra strength to get through that. And for Jim Bradford's family as they mourn the loss of Jim. And I just ask your blessing on the rest of the meeting that we might be successful. Amen.
USSVI Creed. To perpetuate the memory of our shipmates who gave their lives in pursuit of their duties while serving their country, that their dedication, deeds, and supreme sacrifice be a constant source of motivation towards greater accomplishments. We pledge loyalty and patriotism to the United States of America and its Constitution. Please remain standing for the tolling of the votes for May. USS Squalor, SS-192, lost on 23 May 1939 when it flooded and sank off Fort Smith, New Hampshire. The boat was salvaged and recommissioned later under a new name. 26 men lost. USS Lagarto, SS-371, lost on 3 May 1945 in the Gulf of Siam during a Japanese surface attack. 86 men lost. USS Pickleback, SS-415, rammed on exercises off Hawaii by the USS Silverstein, DD-534, on 28 May 1958. All crew safely evacuated prior to sinking 29 May 1958. No lost lives. USS Scorpion, SSN 589, lost on 22 May 1968 due to unknown causes 400 miles southwest of the Azores in the Atlantic. 99 men lost. In keeping with the USSVI Creed, let us remain in a mood of reverence and respect while we take a moment to remember those submariners who have received their final orders and are now serving on eternal patrol. The Rocky Mountain Base Eternal Patrol list for May. Arthur Ockmeyer, 5/5/2007. William Donald Irving, 5/9/2012. John Joseph Nash, 5/24/2015. Mike Bunce, 5/21/2018. James Bradford, 5/4/2025. And it came to our attention recently that Howard Loomis, 11/2/2022.
Kurt Miner passed away too, probably in 2012.
Okay, get together with me on that afterwards. Okay, please be seated. Holland Club Post. You're really born, young man. For most submariners, a submerged submarine provides a quiet and somewhat tranquil setting, free from many of the distractions present in the everyday surface world. So in keeping with that, we will take her down for our regular meeting. Clear the bridge. Take her down. Dive. Dive. Okay, we do have a new member here. Raise your hand, Jennifer. Her dad just passed recently, and he was a diesel boat sailor. So let's go ahead and do a roll call. If you would just stand, or Gene, you can stay sitting, and tell us your name and what boat you qualified on. And Jeff, why don't you start us off?
Jeff Mussel qualified on the USS George C. Marshall SSPN North Pole, January 1981.
And yeah,
And Mike Dugan qualified on the USS Simon Boulevard Gold, 1970.
Ryan.
Well, qualified on USS Renard, 6662, and fighting your district West Fusion. John Newcomb, qualified on the USS John Marshall, January 77. Rising.
Bruce, why don't you go?
Bruce Waller, 273, USS Fargo, SSN 650, and Beautiful Lifeline.
And Jennifer, why don't you just tell us your name and what boat your dad served on?
Sure. As long as you know, this feels too much. But he was right about his service. He just was so proud and so grateful.
Don't cry in baseball.
And she has recently signed up as a new associate member. All right. Patrick. All right. Gene, you can just all around.
I'm Gene Dillon. I qualified on the USS Dog Fish from 1963. And I served on the USS Sea Rodden, 407, and 67. And Jennifer and myself were in a take over caps for kids.
Oh, right. Ray?
Ray Savard, graduated. Ray Savard. Qualified U.S. SS 426, June of 1968. Maybe you, yeah. Want to change my name?
Dennis?
Yeah, Robinson, you know what happened? I got after the year at Harvard.
Who about that?
First level was the John Adams. That was in 1964. We were at 14, probably long. And then my second global was the USS Base, SSN 607, Squadron 10 out of that was 1966. Case out.
Yeah.
I have Jack Rose. I qualified on the USS Segundo, SS 398. These are both fans. In 1966. Then I got transferred to the USS MG Malaya, SSDN 6. And I qualified on her in 1960.
Myra?
Air Force nurse during the Vietnam era, stations that I've been in the hospital that received wounded in Vietnam, but I've always loved submarines and submariners.
Andy?
I'm Andy Meverden, I'm an associate member, commissioning chaplain of the USS Colorado, and the religious program specialist, driver, and bodyguard for
Grant?
I'm Grant Day. I qualified on the USS Benjamin Franklin SSBN 640 Blue in September of 1969. And I'm your treasurer and membership chairman.
Grant?
Dan Ballard, I was on USS Henry L. Stimson. Got qualified in December of 1988, 655 Blue, and I was a missile tech.
Chris? Let us know your name and what boat you qualified on.
Chris.
Okay.
On the USS Daniel Boone, 629 gold in 1988. And then I commissioned the USS Louisiana in 97. Retired Navy, 23 years. With me is my wife Helen. She's also retired Navy Reserves, 22 years.
Helen, do you want to say anything? Okay. And I'm Paul Leitz. I qualified on the USS William H. Bates in 1974. And then I was on the USS La Jolla and then on the USS Tennessee. And I'd like to do a quick introduction to Dury Monsma. And he's retired captain of the Coast Guard. And he's going to be our speaker today. And I listened to his talk, I guess it was a month ago, wasn't it? 2 months ago. 2 months ago. And he was the CEO of a small group of men that were running a Loran Sea station on a small island called the French Frigate Island, which I believe is way north of Hawaii, right? Northwest of Hawaii, quite a ways. You spent 12 months, I believe, there. And so I thought it would be kind of interesting. He had some pretty good stories about being stuck on an island with 14 guys for 12 months. Okay, so I'd like to introduce retired captain after 26 years in the reserve and active 4 years, Guri Manspa. The pictures in the back are just ones that he took while he was stationed on the island. Thank you, Paul.
You know, I'm very conscious just how much of a shallow water sailor I was. I realized how much time you guys spent underwater. um, and actually, the little island I was stationed on, which was about 500 miles northwest of Hawaii, was about 3,000 feet long, about 450 feet wide. There were 3 trees on the whole island, just a bunch of buildings off to the side. And it supplied Loran navigational information to ships and aircraft. Loran, probably for many of you, you dealt mainly with INS navigation, I guess, underwater and sonar. Loran was invented back in 1940 by a MIT scientist, a guy by the name of Alfred Loomis. And in conjunction with the Coast Guard, they first started to develop Loran stations on the East Coast. Eventually, they spread throughout the whole world. So at its peak, there were probably 150 stations, Loran stations operated by the Coast Guard throughout the world. Few people know that. For anybody who's really interested in digging into that kind of history, there's an excellent website put up by Master Chief Petty Officer Bill Dietz called loran-history.info, and it has individualized information about every one of those 150 stations. It's really been a work of love for the Coast Guard for him to put all of that together. I was a young Lieutenant JG stationed in Cape May, New Jersey at the big training center with it, which is a big major boot camp for the Coast Guard. And I saw an advertisement in one of the Coast Guard publications saying they were looking for young officers to serve on Loran stations. And I was thinking places like Hokkaido, Miyakojima, Guam, someplace really interesting. But you had to put your name in the hat, and whatever you drew is what you'd wind up with. So mine happened to be French Frigate Shoals, which had a reputation as absolutely the worst, most isolated station in the entire Coast Guard. You're out there, 18 guys on this island, 1 officer, a crew that consisted of seamen, electronic technicians that operated the Loran station, a few enginemen to operate the generators, and beyond that, there really wasn't much other human contact other than occasional patched phone calls back home. I understand you guys had even less contact with home when you were operating on submarines. It was all one-way kind of communication. Well, it was the kind of communication we had was via phone patch on ham radio, which is kind of awkward, as you can imagine, being broadcast over a net. And many of the young guys, probably like those you served with, were pretty young. I was 23. Some of the guys were 17, 18 years old. The senior petty officers would probably be in their mid-30s. So I viewed my major job was trying to maintain morale on this, what many people consider this godforsaken hunk of coral out in the middle of the Pacific. And actually, its reputation was as the coral carrier. It was created by the Navy Seabees in World War II. Few people know that this atoll in which my island was located kind of played a critical role in the Second World War. It was mentioned in the movie Midway, for those of you who've seen it, because the Japanese, following the Pearl Harbor attack, came back a couple of months later. They brought 3 submarines into the atoll, refueled a couple of Emily long-range seaplanes that were launched from the Marshall Islands, and equipped them with a couple of 500-pound bombs. And then he took off en route to Pearl Harbor, and their objective was to check on what remained of the U.S. fleet and to drop those bombs and further harass the shipping if they could. What happened was they arrived in very bad weather. The Army actually and the Air Force have been aware by radar that they were coming, but because the weather was so bad, fighter planes launched by the U.S. didn't manage to intercept them. And they dropped their bombs, missed everything, and then flew back to French frigate shoals. Well, the Navy quickly figured out what had happened, that these planes had been launched from French frigate or had been refueled by submarines in French frigate. So Admiral Nimitz sent out a Navy contingent out to the island, and they dredged out a channel next to Turtle Island, created basically Turtle Island, and within a month or two, they were up and running. Meanwhile, the Japanese had thought that first reconnaissance run was pretty successful from their standpoint, so they wanted to try it again. So when their subs turned up off the French frigate and kind of reconnoitered the place, they saw the Navy presence and decided not a good idea, so they turned around and left. And that created an opening because they did not see that the fleet was in the process of moving to be stationed northwest of Midway. And the subsequent Battle of Midway, of course, which is worldwide famous and many people consider to have turned the tide of the war, maybe partly due to the fact that they didn't have good intelligence on where the U.S. fleet was. In fact, they didn't. And meanwhile, the U.S. had broken the Japanese code. And as a result of that, we had a resounding victory in Midway. As I recall, only one U.S. aircraft carrier was lost and several Japanese aircraft carriers went down. So that was the World War II history of French frigate. Following that, the Navy continued to maintain a presence on French frigate. Pacific Missile Test Range was launched there later. It was also used as a site for the monitoring of atomic bomb tests in the Pacific. And following all of that, they turned it over to the Coast Guard for use as a Loranje station. Initially, the Coast Guard had set up a Loranje station on a small island called East Island, which is about 6 miles southeast of where we were. And that was an even tinier island. And morale, from all I read about that, the time on East Island was even worse than for many of the people who were on Turn Island. They had a couple of attempted suicides for people who were stationed on the island. Eventually, after the Navy left in 1945, the Coast Guard decided to relocate their Loranje station to the bigger Turn Island where they could get regular mail and delivery and shipments. So that brings us forward to my time there, which was 1971 to 1972. And before they send you out to isolated duty like this, they put you through kind of your own individual boot camp on Governor's Island in New York. And I distinctly remember the last words of the guy who was running that school was, "Don't let them go native on you." And probably truer words were never spoken, because I remember arriving on that little island, this very gung-ho from having just spent a year at a boot camp, and then these words ringing in my ears from Governor's Island. And so one of the first decisions I made was not the smartest, but I decided the crew needed to shape up. They didn't look physically fit to me. So I had them all break out on the runway for morning calisthenics, followed by a half-mile run. You can imagine just how popular that was, particularly for some of the older petty officers, who had started to develop, some evidence of a lot of beer consumption by that time. And so it didn't take 2 days before they all approached me and said, "Captain, if you'll agree to cut out the calisthenics, we'll agree that there will never be no operational problems whatsoever on this island." And I said, "Well, that sounds good to me." So that was the end of calisthenics. But then I had to set about seeing what I could do to try to maintain and build island morale during the year I was out there. We had just, as I mentioned, that weekly log flight that would come in with mail and movies and food. The movies would come from the Navy Motion Picture Exchange, and maybe you saw those on submarines as well. And kind of varied quality for the movies. But brainstorming about it, I came up with the idea, since several of the guys out there were Notre Dame fans. I wrote away to the coach of the Notre Dame football team, who at that time was Eric Parsegian, for those of you who go that far back. And he agreed to send game film out on the weekly log flights. So in addition to the movies, which I said the quality sort of varied, we suddenly had weekly football games and being shown on the island, which I think the crew generally appreciated. The other thing I did was try to bring some financial order to the mess, because out there we had to buy our own beer and and soda and all of the refreshments. So I arrived and each member of the crew had to put in $50 when they first arrived, and probably in contemporary dollars, that's about $200 out of pocket, which is quite a bit. And a lot of the inventory was tied up in a horrible soda, knee-high grape. I don't know if anybody ever tasted that stuff, but it was it was pretty bad, and it had been in the inventory for so long. There were 90 cases of it that it turned to sugar, down the bottom. So I was trying to salvage something financially out of it. So I started posting signs around it that said that knee-high grape makes you virile, and so the next thing, I woke up the next morning, walked down the passageway, and that was crossed out, and it was knee-high grape makes you sterile. So that was the end of trying to sell knee-high grape. And we just took the loss on all of that soda and ordered a lot more beer. Probably the biggest tragedy that happened from a crew standpoint during the year was that we actually ran out of beer. And because of bad weather, it couldn't be delivered by buoy tender. So I had to start bringing it out on the weekly DC-3 flights. And that wasn't welcome at Coast Guard headquarters, because they usually had various equipment as well as personnel and technicians being shipped out there. So I ordered another 50 cases of Heineken to be delivered on the next buoy tender. And all was going well. We're starting to offload the beer. And the buoy tender took a sharp roll in the surf. And suddenly we saw 50 cases of beer going straight to the bottom. So that was kind of a downer for morale for a while, until I could finally work out a deal to have them make another buoy tender run to get some out there. Speaking seriously about the place, many of you may have seen on the Smithsonian Channel or elsewhere that the whole Shoals operation is part of the Fish and Wildlife Preserve and now part of the National Monument. And so we hosted frequently guests from the Fish and Wildlife Service, Smithsonian scientists. We even had a trip out there by a Sports Illustrated writer who spent a week with us. And he actually took the photo of the crew that's back there underneath and that's me in dress whites and everybody else in their working attire. And occasionally we'd have visits from the occasional admiral. We had, because it was about 500 miles away from Hawaii, the Air Force crews would try to make photo runs down the runway once in a while. The Coast Guard did not like to land C-130s on the island because of the risk of bird strikes. We had tons of seabirds out there, Laysan albatrosses, shearwaters, knotty terns, and we would, before the DC-3 would land, we'd take a trip up and down the runway with trucks, try to scare birds off the runway. Didn't always work. We frequently had bird strikes, and at one point, one of my predecessors wrote that they were so upset about the prospect of when an admiral threatened to stop all of the air shipments, in the Weekly Mail that he actually sent out a group of guys with baseball bats to take care of the nighty terns that were nesting at the end of the island. Not something that we ever told Fish and Wildlife about, but they didn't want to have it interfere with their weekly deliveries. I mentioned, I think last time when I was talking to the Coast Guard group, the Colorado Coasties, that, and you may have discovered this on a submarine, that the morale on the island could greatly depend on who was in the crew at that particular moment. We had 2 people would arrive in the crew, 2 would rotate off. So at various times, the chemistry on the island could be excellent. Other times, it would be pretty bad. And one particular young man really gave me pause. He proclaimed himself to be a kung fu expert and had just been transferred to the island and developed an immediate dislike for one of the enginemen on the island, this big muscular kid who used to ride him quite a bit. And there was a knock on my door. I'd been there for about a month. One night I lived in a trailer adjacent to the barracks. And he wanted to talk to me. He said he had visions that he was about to kill somebody on the island. Wouldn't tell me who it was. But the very next morning, the cook came and reported to me that every knife in the kitchen had disappeared. And so we hunted all over the barracks for the knives, found them under this kid's bed. And and then after a day or two, he started passing out at various times in the passageways. And when I confronted him about this, he said, "Well, Captain, I can't be responsible. I think I'm losing my mind." So I finally gave up, called and sent a message to Hawaii. They flew a plane out with a shrink, and he examined him and said, "Yeah, we probably ought to take him off the island." So he went back, and in typical Coast Guard fashion, I guess, he was assigned to be an armed gate guard in Hawaii. but but that that was probably the closest brush we had with any real major personnel kind of confrontation during the year on the island. We did have some interesting events that happened during the year for reasons I still can't understand. Russian trawlers used to try to make it into the surrounding waters, within the 3-mile limit. And I remember one time going out with a boatswain armed with an M16 out to this out to this trawler and having all these Russian sailors looking over the edge, down at us. It must have felt pretty ridiculous to see, a couple of people in this small boat, 16-foot boat below, one of them armed with an M16. But I was making motions, you need to move on out. And eventually they picked up anchor and did. But the year after I left, apparently it escalated into an international incident where, I don't know if it was the same trawler, but came back. And it actually wound up with a complaint being filed with the Russian embassy in Washington before they finally moved out of U.S. waters. We also, during the last 2 weeks I was there was and by the way, there was a lot of shipwrecks out in these shoals in French frigate. But we had a Japanese trawler run aground on the reef about 20 miles away from us. And so I hopped in a boat with a boatswain chief, and we went out there, and the boat was literally pounding up and down on the reef. We thought it was going to, probably hold the boat and sink it. And meanwhile, the C-130 Coast Guard aircraft had been dispatched from Barbers Point in Hawaii, and they were ready to drop rafts and everything else to try to rescue the crew. But the chief was from the East Coast, used to a lot of these kind of situations. So when we boarded the boat, we quickly discovered that nobody spoke any English, and the charts they were using were woefully out of date. But the chief drew a diagram of how to let out the anchors and kedge the boat off, just pull it on the anchors when we reached high tide. And he said to me, "This is going to do one of two things. It's either going to tear the bottom out of the boat or get them off." And fortunately, it was the latter. they got off and then immediately took off for the high seas with us still on board. He was so anxious to get out of there, but we finally convinced him to slow down, let us off, so we could get back on our skiff and get back to French Frigate Shoal. We had, as I mentioned, there were sometimes some awkward phone calls with, particularly with a lot of young guys from the South who've been married maybe at 18, 19 years old, and we'd have Dear John letters arriving, and so that would throw the crew into a deep funk from time to time. But one of the guys who helped morale by, it's really an interesting story, a guy named Barry from Arizona used to coordinate a lot of these phone calls for people on the island. And one time somebody asked him on air, well, Barry, what do you do for a living? He said, well, I'm a U.S. Senator. It was Barry Goldwater. And I didn't realize the connection until picking up many years later. Somebody sent me these entire scrapbook for years and years of French frigate history. And a vessel had put in, that was based in Newport Beach, that had sailed around the world, had actually put into French frigate. And I looked down the crew list of the people who were on that boat, and there was Barry Goldwater. So he must have actually spent a little bit of time on French frigate shoals. I should mention that one of the outlets for the crew was hunting for glass balls, which appeared on many of the small little coral spit that were in the atoll. That was a major preoccupation. Part of it also was shark hunting, which would be kind of a dangerous occupation out there. A lot of big tiger sharks in addition to reef sharks. And so I kind of mandated that if we're going to go spearfishing, that it had to be very brief, and there would always be somebody at the surface armed with a bang stick, and later a stick with actually a CO2 cartridge in it, where if you hit the shark almost anywhere, it would create an embolism and stop it in its tracks. And so we never had any really significant problems with sharks, although we frequently saw big tiger sharks would show up early in the year when goonie birds were learning to fly. And you'd see a goonie, flapping its wings, and maybe it might not develop the strength to actually glide for very long periods, and would land on the water. And then suddenly you see a shark just come from underneath and just pluck it right out of the water. We also, a few years ago, I picked up the New York Times and looked at a story about an anchor that they had discovered in the shoals. And we used to dive on this anchor. I had no idea of the significance of it. It turned out to be the anchor of a whaling ship from 1825, a boat called the Two Brothers. And the captain of that boat, Captain Pollard, had been the captain of the famous Essex, which was sunk by a sperm whale off the coast of South America. And that became the inspiration for Herman Melville's Moby Dick. Anyway, he was rescued by the Two Brothers ship, and the captain of which was about to retire. And he decided that Captain Pollard was an excellent captain and a good replacement. But all those, maybe about 3 or 4 years later, he sailed that boat, the Two Brothers whaling ship, and into French frigate shoals, and got caught on one of the reef systems around there, and the ship went down. Fortunately, everybody was rescued by another whaler that was nearby. But we had a little bit of Herman Melville history once removed in French frigate shoal. Today, French frigate on Turn Island is mainly washed away. The Lorraine system the Coast Guard operated in the Pacific was closed down in 1979, only 7 years after I was there. And today, you've seen some of the pictures of birds up there, like that happens to be a bird that was skipped by one of our DC-3s while landing. And that's me mourning over it. But that was the end of the Coast Guard's presence in on many small islands in the Pacific. And you can see there another shark picture. And at various times of the year, the waters around French Frigate would be absolutely teeming with sharks. You almost felt like you'd walk across a lagoon just on the backs of sharks. And so the Fish and Wildlife still goes out there to monitor seal populations and green sea turtle. At one point, there were only about 300 monk seals left in the world, most of them which popped out in the French Frigate area. And green sea turtles were also reduced to a very small population. Fortunately, those have started to come back after it was declared a refuge. So with that, that's about all I have to say about the French Frigate, unless you have any questions about what it's like to serve there. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So we did surface ships use it all the time. So did submarines back in the 60s, 70s. You just do a triangular, because it all it did is it pulse out a signal
Right.
continuously, and then they would pick it up, and then they would able to triangle over three of them and know where you're at. That was a GPS back then.
Right.
It was a military acronym, PAPA.
Yeah.
Long range aid
Navigation. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, the talk that I heard a couple months ago about some women come flying in.
Oh yes, I should have mentioned that. The other thing we in trying to come up with ideas for how we could improve morale, I used to scour the papers that came in weekly from Honolulu, and I saw that the Army was this is the height of the Vietnam War, and they have a great deal of difficulty getting blood donations. So we wrote off a letter to the commanding general of Tripler Army Hospital and said, well, we will guarantee you 18 contributions if you send out 4 of your most attractive nurses on the plane. So anyway, it blew up in the whole of the Honolulu papers about how the Coast Guard was volunteering. Every man on this one station was going to donate blood, and why could the rest of the population not donate blood? So they flew out, and true to their word, they did arrive with all these nurses. We had these enormous signs on the roofs of the barracks saying, "French Frigate welcomes first women ever." And these guys were just totally dumbstruck. They didn't know what to say when the women walked in and went to a long lunch. When we took them on a little tour of the nearby islands, and I think they really enjoyed it. That became an annual thing, by the way, for Tripoli Army Hospital. Every succeeding year that the Coast Guard operated there, they sent out annual nurses. Oh, I'm sorry. I probably, I should.
So,
Yes.
Get your
Fuel would come by buoy tender.
okay.
And, we had both MoGas, to operate the station, 2 station trucks, and we had aviation gasoline in these big drums that after they're emptied, we'd have to put them off the edge of the island. We actually lost 1 truck while I was out there while that happened, where the driver was going a little bit too fast, pumped the brakes, brake cylinders punctured, and off went the truck off the side. He managed to jump off before it went in. Yeah.
USO troops are bring that in cold?
They did. Actually, that's a very good question, because Robbie and I, when we lived, my wife Robbie's here, my wife of 45 years, we met this woman who had been a USO performer who was out there in 1945. And we talked with her. Actually, I talked to her retiree group about French frigate, and that's when I learned that she had actually been out there. And her only complaint was that her costume had been stolen by the Navy. Any other questions? Huh? Yeah, well, thanks very much. I really enjoyed hearing about all of your exploits too. Sure.
Okay, let's go ahead and run through the birthdays real quick. Our speaker for next month is going to be Jack Hunter again. For those of you who were here last meeting, he talked about the Coast Guard during Vietnam. He's now going to talk about the almost loss of the U.S. Guard or Coast Guard cutter Jarvis, and he was a chief gunner's mate on board when it got grounded bad, almost got broken up into a bunch of pieces. They were able to save the boat and all crew members, and the captain wrote a book called All Present and Accounted For. So he's going to talk about that at the next meeting. It was a pretty good story. Okay, for May, we got Bruce, the 5th. Harry Trender, the 7th. Bruce Marston is the 8th. Helen, you're the 12th. Carl Rash is the 19th. Sandra is the 29th. And Myra, you're the 29th. Okay, so we have 2 people for June. We have Robert Willis Cross, the 9th. And we have John Newcomb on the 19th. Do we have any volunteers for bringing the cake for next meeting? You volunteer? Oh, okay. That was an easy one. Okay, so remember we have the 50-50. Who's running the 50-50? I forgot. Oh, Bruce is. And so you want to get a 50-50, go for it. Otherwise, we have cake and cupcakes. And let's take a break. Do we have anybody that would like to run for the position of secretary, treasurer, vice commander, or commander? Anybody? Anybody? Yeah? No volunteers? Yeah. Okay. So if you know that the vice commander, the treasurer, and the secretary are all 1-year appointments or positions, and then mine is a 2-year. And everybody has agreed to continue one more time around. Mine's a 2 years, the others are a single year. So since we don't have anybody running except for the people that are currently here, do we have any? Let me see a show of hands for re-electing the entire group of secretary, treasurer, and vice commander and commander. And we have it looks like it's unanimous, except for Julie. She didn't want to vote. You'll do 2 years? I'm in for 2 years. At the end of this 2-year position, I'm going to call it quits. That'll be 4 years. So think about somebody that wants to step in this position.
Mine would be 6 years.
And Grant's going to be finishing after 2 years also, which means he's had the treasurer for 6 years. So think in the back of your mind. So we figured out everybody is staying where they are, and we will do the induction into or swearing in June meeting. You won't. Well, then we'll swear you in the meeting afterwards. So don't swear too hard. Yeah, watch your language. Okay. So we had, hey, Grant, why don't you guys finish this right after the meeting? We're going to go into the lounge anyway. Okay. So for all of you that knew Dick life. He passed away a couple months ago, and 2 weeks ago we had his memorial service. We had a really good turnout. We had about 10 or 11 people there from our group. They had it at the American Legions at Estes Park, and it's probably about the same size as this here. And they had a big patio off to the side, and it was standing room only. I mean, they brought in extra chairs. They had 10 people standing out on the patio. It was really a pretty good ceremony. It was a Catholic ceremony, so it lasted an hour and a half. It was pretty good. And then I got to go up and do the honor reading. And then I invited all the veterans, and 80% of the people there were veterans, to come up and give Dick a final salute. And it went pretty good. I thought it was quite moving on all the veterans that wanted to give him his final salute. And it's been brought to my attention that some of you may want to talk about some of your interactions with Dick. He was a talker. He always had to be dragged away from somewhere because he would just talk and talk and talk and talk forever. He had 2 biological kids and 4 adopted kids. And 2 of the grandkids were, one was a second class sonar tech, I think, a Navy surface, and the other one was Marine Corps, corporal, I believe. And they were there, and so it was quite moving. So does anybody how many people saw his obituary? Remember I sent it out an email? Yeah, he was quite an impressive individual. And his oldest son, Dick, or Rick, is actually a captain at the Estes Park Police Department. And that's how I got a hold of the family, was I hunted down him because I knew where he was at. And he was real agreeable and put us into the service. Does anybody have any words to say about Dick? Gene, go ahead.
About 10 years ago, we were at a submarine banquet. And Dick Light, what we were honoring was the widow of the Grado had flown out and attended the memorial. And she was quite an impressive lady. And we were having dinner at this banquet at Holiday Inn. And I was the base commander. So at my table was this widow and a few other people. And the tables were about the size of these tables. And all of a sudden I get a tap on the shoulder, and it was Dick Light and J.J. Macca. And they were on their knees. I turned around with my back to the widow, and they're whispering to me. Dick was on my right knee, and J.J. was at my left knee. And I'm looking down and thinking, what are these guys up to? And they said, can you think of anything we could do to give her a gift? And I looked at Dick, I looked at JJ, I looked back at Dick. I said, well, for me, I give a pair of little gold dolphins you're wearing and your class ring.
They're both they're both Naval Academy grads.
Yeah, they're both they're the ring knocker. So they were speechless. I'm looking in their eyes. And then I said to Dick, I said, you know, you got good looking hair. But I totally stopped and cold.
The look on their face, those pictures was just like. I don't know why they didn't get the class three. Yeah, well, too cost.
Was it last, 4th of July that Dick paid for the lodging?
It's the one before.
It was 2 years ago. So many years ago, Estes Park always throws a big rodeo and a big fireworks and a big parade on the 4th of July. And 2 years ago, Dick contacted me and said that he would like to have our float up there at the parade, and that he offered to pay for the room and board, he said, for one, I think it was 2 nights, one night first and then the next night. And that's what he did. It ended up costing him probably $2,500 or so for all of us that went up there. It was a lot of fun. We're going to do it again. We did it the next year, and then we are doing it again this year. A little later on, I'll talk about where we're at. But once we got started on it, we really enjoyed it. Last year wasn't so good because they were doing so much construction that the whole downtown area was blocked off. And so the parade route was really short, quick. But the one 2 years ago where they actually went down Main Street and stuff like that, it's pretty good. For those of you that have never attended a parade, we get to corners, we get to places where there's a lot of people, and you'll get standing ovations and yelling and stuff, and it's a lot of fun and pretty impressive to attend these parades. And so, yeah, he was the one that got us restarted on it. Jack, you got something?
Yeah, that's a story, so.
Okay.
No, here. He sailed on a diesel boat and qualified on diesel boats. And then he got turned down for the nuclear power program. Well, in any case, this happened before Dick moved from Fort Collins up here. Well, he used to stand in for one of the political science professors over at CSU every once in a while. So he called me up one day and he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna be over there talking to one of the classes. Would you like to come over?" And I said, "Well, sure, I'll come over and sit in on the class." So I did that, and he's going through his spiel. Well, after he left the submarine force, he was a spy in Russia. Okay, but while he was giving his bio of things to the class, he said, and I'm sitting there, and he said, "Yeah," he says, "I tried to get on the nuclear power boats, but I wasn't smart enough to do that." Well, yeah. He said, so I decided to go into intelligence, which is what he did.
The little known fact was that Dick established a network of informers in Moscow. He recruited and organized Russian spies.
They were Catholics, right? That's how he told me he got it working because they were Catholics. He's Catholic, so he used the premise of being in the Catholic Church in Russia, which was very small, and he used them as a network of spies. He did that for 2 years or 3 years, something like that.
He was there for 2 years.
2 years, yeah. Impressive individual.
Yes, right. The unit.
Yeah.
Some go to trial. In Russia, they have a parade, and they with all their weapons,
Oh.
they go down the parade.
Yeah,
Just
Mayday parade, yep.
Every night, y'all never seen it on TV, right? Well, he was standing underneath where all the dignitaries were standing. And he had his son with the camera,
35 millimeter.
35 millimeter camera, taking pictures of the weapons. And you had a little pocket camera that you would put up his eye and strap his eye and take a picture. But his son took the majority of the pictures. You're just a little kid. I thought that was pretty ingenious.
Yeah, he actually said that all those photographs ended up in the Pentagon for reviewing of each one of the new armament that they had. Stuff. So, yeah, he was a pretty impressive individual. Anybody else have anything? Okay, let's go on to, for those of you that I sent the word out email that Jim Bradford also passed on May 4th. And his funeral services are May 21st. That's a Wednesday, 2 weeks from now. The service starts at 0930 at the Drink Wine Mortuary at 999 West Littleton Boulevard. And so it's right in downtown Littleton at 9:30. And I'll send all this information out in an email so you have it out. And then they're having the funeral at 1100 at Fort Logan. We'll find out A, B, or C as it gets closer. Okay. There's conflicts with bingo. Myra's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Andy has already got a previous engagement. Barbara and Dennis are not able to attend. Jean wants to go to the service. And that would leave Patrick for bingo and maybe Eileen. But no, I'm going to the service. I'm going to present the honor. Yeah, so Gene said that he would cancel bingo. So now you guys can go to the service, right? Oh, there you go. That's a good idea. Okay, so I'll put out the information. If you can attend, please attend and wear your vests. And you said you talked to Nancy, right? But did she actually put us in the program, or is she just going to let us do something at the end?
Probably she would talk to her daughter, and so I was going to make a contact with her again for
Okay.
the week. But her family's about, so she's got a ton of people
Yeah.
there. But I'm going to try to talk to the person that sort of had setting that up, make sure that she has as long as Nancy isn't in real good health herself.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So if you would let me know what the final outcome of that is. And like I said, I'll write all this out in an email so everybody will have that information. Yes.
For your information, Jim Bradford was vice commander.
Okay.
4 years when I was vice commander.
I didn't start attending until 2026 meetings. I actually attended for about a year or so back in '93. And the only person I remember back there is Al Nito. He's the one that got me in on initially. So I'm not really familiar with a lot of that these individuals did, but he was a vice commander. Huh? Okay. And while we were doing all the searching through the Eternal Patrol list, we noticed that there was some kind of odd thing with Howard Loomis. And he actually passed November 2nd of 2022. Nobody actually informed us, so we were kind of caught flat-footed. And so that's why I've added him to our Eternal Patrol list. Okay, let's go on to the 50th anniversary of the Grayling Memorial. Everybody seen the plaque that we have out? You know, I sent it out in an email. Did everybody see that? Does anybody have any changes, ideas? We have already, not we, Grant has already talked with the local group that did the plaques already for our memorial. And the construction of this plaque is going to run about $2,700, you said?
$2,800 for the plaque plus the
Yeah, $2,800 for the plaque plus mounting. Now, Dan just pointed out to us that Charitable Foundation can grant up to $3,000 for a grant. We may try that, but we're also thinking of some donation. If anybody has any ideas about how we can donate, whether it's just a couple dollars each meeting for the next several meetings or what, just to kind of bring things up to what we have. We do have one idea, which we need to kind of vote on. Our operations, our Cats for Kids. Our Cats for Kids account is not really designated as a Cats for Kids account. It's just designated as Rocky Mountain base of the USS, US. Yeah. So there's a possibility that we can cancel that account and put that, and we have about $2,900 in there, and put that over into our general account so that we could use that for the plaque. Because at national, we have $6,000 in national account for Caps for Kids. We've had several donations over the years, and one, Pollock is her last name. What was it? Cindy Pollock used to give us $1,000 every month to go into the charitable fund because her husband was running that at one time, right?
Gene Keller found it.
Yep, him and Gene Keller. So Grant told me that we need to actually do a vote for that. He's going to have to clear it through National first, the National Treasurer, to make sure that we're not stepping on something we shouldn't be stepping on. And how many people are agreeable to the fact that we take that $2,900 and move it into our general fund and use it for the plaque? Raise of hands. Anybody opposed doing that? Dennis, how come? Okay.
I believe we have enough supply caps for kids since we're bringing it back up.
For about a year, because Kathy did $1,000 bill just before she quit, where she got also extra hats and beanies and coloring books and all that kind of stuff.
We're going to do with the fund.
We will take and order it from our main kit, and then we submit that receipt to national and take it out of our national funds and get reimbursed for the base level.
Okay, I just want to know what the plan is.
Yeah.
Can we bring the money from national and put it into our?
We can't do that.
They don't allow that. All they will do is pay invoices that we give to them. Yeah.
Here, let me explain.
So they would pay up to $6,000?
No, what we have to do is that our base funds are not 501c3 funds. In other words, if somebody gives you a donation to the base and says, I need a tax deduction, you cannot do that. The only way that that can be done is if they donate to the USS Charitable Foundation, and then it's tax deductible. And then we still have to send them an invoice, and we can get paid back for the invoice. But if they just give us money to the base, it is not tax deductible. And that's where I had to find out how the account that we call our base Caps for Kids account is not listed as a 501c3 tax deductible account, because it cannot be. However, at the bank, they listed it initially. Gene Keller, when he set up the account, said, oh, it's a charitable fund. We're 501c19 military organization. We're a tax-free organization, but we're not a tax deductible organization as it would be with a charitable foundation.
Like, we're doing, if you don't deduct your taxes, if you get deduction, it's only to charitable.
And that's what they've been doing, is that's why our charitable foundation is so high, because people that were donating wanted to get tax write-off. And so he hasn't cleared it through national yet, but that is our proposed plan.
So my concern is, we've been running for 3 or 4 years without a capture kit.
It's been a year, almost 2 years.
2 years, 3 years.
And no money has been deposited into that account. As a matter of fact, I just had to pay $6 just to bring the account out of being a dead account.
Yeah, a defunct account.
Take away from capture kit before it's up.
We're not. We've got $6,000 sitting in a national that we can tap into.
We have some on hand, right? You said for.
And we have almost a year's supply on hand.
Yeah.
And we now have a new Caps for Kids chairman to take and, to work with me to take and get things all rolling again.
So I think his concern is that we need to pull money right away. It's not there. So it's going to be in the general fund and we're going to spend it on the plaque. But we still have how much in our general fund?
3,000.
3,000 in the general fund.
Which will cover the fund. And
If we did nothing,
Yeah.
if we did nothing. What we're looking at doing is taking the account at First Bank and taking those dollars that are costing us money right now and putting them in, taking and closing that account completely, moving those dollars into our operations account, which would cover the cost of the memorial plaque.
Otherwise, you're gonna send it to national.
Otherwise, I keep paying the bank.
Yeah.
So, going forward, will we be reopening an account or not?
No.
It'll all come out of general fund.
Yeah. So what we'll do is use the general fund, submit the invoices, and put it back into the general fund.
And you would send that invoice to
National to the
cover whatever expense you got.
whatever we got. That's subtracted from the amount we have at national.
You have a figure on the cost of the plaque. Do you have a figure on the installation?
That's coming up.
But it's roughly around $2,800.
Probably $500 unless we do
Oh, mounting the plaque?
mounting
Okay.
the plaque, maybe around 500 unless we take and do a lot of the modifications ourselves. And then, well, it would go down.
So we need to, so we're using that stanchion that used to hold the flagpole up. We're going to cut that at an angle, put a plaque up there or a plate up there that the plaque could be mounted on. And I know that Dale has got his own welding equipment and stuff that we should be able to cut those brackets and weld on a plate. And then they would do the final installation of adding the plaque to the plate.
And I would like to contribute to the installation, the cost of there, and record it in the minutes or whatever. Go on record of completing the installation cost myself
Okay.
and the donation.
Appreciate it.
Yes, much appreciated. Sure.
My next meeting, well, I won't be here in June, but by July, I'll have a quote on what the estimated cost would be so that you can take care of that. And that's all we need is everybody to think about it and consider what you might want to donate for yourselves because the plaque says it is donated by Rocky Mountain Submarine Base and the flag company because they donated almost $3,000 worth of installation costs for the flag mast that we put up there. So So anyhow, it's donated by and if you recall, and I'll have Paul bring the sketches out again. It is the USS Grayling Memorial Plaza. So this plaque is donating regarding all of that whole plaza area there that we're looking at, and also with the new mast and stuff. So that's what the plaque is for, is to take and commemorate 50 years of that plaza.
Yeah.
Over there.
It's that second floor. Yeah.
The other starboard. Yeah. Southeast, southwest.
Okay.
Okay. That's clear? What we're
Brandon,
doing?
you got anything else you want to talk about?
No. Acting for.
Randy?
Question. I understand the tax, deal, but are you saying that you were not entitled to give a charitable,
Donate.
charitable, law at all?
That is correct. Now here's where it comes in, where the gray area is, that the local base is a 501c19 non-taxable. So we don't pay taxes, on our income. Okay, that all goes to national, and they do all the taxing, whatever they got to do. However, if you want a tax-deductible donation, if it has to be tax-deductible, that's the key phrase. Don't give it to us. Send it to national, the USSVCF.org. Okay, and make sure it says Rocky Mountain Memorial Fund. That we have it at national, and then it's tax deductible.
Have one set up now.
Yes, Rocky Mountain Memorial Fund. Caps for Kids is Rocky Mountain Caps for Kids, or K for K.
So we had 3 accounts right now. We got one for
Local
storekeeper,
account-
local accounts, one for the storekeeper, one for general funds, and one for the caps for kids.
It's just named that.
It's just named that, but when you look at the documentation, it doesn't say it's for caps for kids. It doesn't say it's for anything. It just says it's for the base. We've been declaring it caps for kids, but it doesn't have to be that as far as we hope national things. So, like I said, he still needs to clear everything to the national treasurer.
Okay, yeah, I was just thinking about, like, I get concerned, you take a big pile of money and you pay it off, now you don't have anything, next thing that comes around.
That's only locally.
Yes, that's just our local.
Locally, but is the intent then to have some sort of a buffer account that could handle an ongoing donations into that account to play it ahead?
That's our national account.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's $6,200 sitting in there making interest. We get paid interest on that every year.
We have access to 3,000 grant
Yeah.
And there's a separate grant, that we can go into.
first, or try that first.
Well, we can, but they're going to say, well, we'll take it out of your 6,000 that you have.
No,
This is
not
totally
out of our
different.
fund. It's like the flagpole.
They would still, they deducted when the flagpole, they gave us the money up front, and then they subtracted it from our dollars that we had.
That's like a grant thing.
Yeah. A grant is usually where you don't have to pay.
I understand.
So can you
grant
double
you
check
this.
on that
Yeah.
statement and see if this is something that they would
Yeah.
put forth for?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do that too. We'll hold he's going to go ahead and contact the charitable fund people and see if we can get the grant for that. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of a pause on closing down that account, and we're going to have Dan here contact a local charitable organization to see if we can get that grant for that plaque before we do anything else. Okay? Sounds good? Acceptable. Annual picnic. Bruce, I appreciate you having your family there. It was great to have all those kids running around, yelling and screaming. They had a pretty good time, didn't they? Yeah, we had all sorts of games for them and stuff, and it was a good time. Nobody was sweating their, you know what, off. It was nice and cool. I think it was 73 or something like that. And we had plenty of food. I had a whole 5 hamburgers left over and no hot dogs. So I'm glad I increased it by a little bit, an extra 10 hot hamburgers. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. We're going to do it again next year in May. And that's about it for we had 41 people show up, which was really good. Okay, I've already talked about the Estes Park Parade. It's on July 7th. We have probably 8 people already lined up for going to that. And what we do, if you live real close, I think, Dan, you just drive on up, don't you, with no issue at all, if you live fairly close. And what we do is we go in that Sunday, we'll go in and we'll got a hotel room. We usually go out as a group for dinner. The next morning, people scramble for breakfast, and then we do the parade. And then afterwards, we usually hit a real nice restaurant up there for lunch.
Hotel you stay in.
We are staying, Tammy and Dale and Julie and myself have already got reservations for the Blue Door Inn. You do too? All right. We got 6 of us already. Okay. So if you want to attend and you want to spend that night up there, it runs about $220 if you go through like Expedia or hotel.com or something like that. And Julie and I stayed up there for Bigfoot days. We were, Estes had their Bigfoot days. It was a lot of fun. And it's a fairly decent, clean hotel. Their breakfasts are not the best in the world, but it'll fill you up.
So, I'm doing like a submarine, just bring pillows, blankets, we can all camp in that room. Everything's on the thing.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. You could, yes. Keyword is could. Okay, so remember July 7th is the parade. July 6th is if you want to spend the night up there.
We're already signed up for it.
Oh, yes, we are. I went ahead and filled out the application and we're all set to go. Okay, so let's move on to the crew. The USS Colorado crew is going to be here starting Monday through Thursday of this next week. So they missed the meeting today, and but what they're doing is on May 15th, that's Thursday, this coming Thursday, at 15:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4:30, they're going to do a tour of the memorial. And at that time, we have the captain of the ship and 4 enlisted that are on the trip this year. The Cobb, okay, the captain and the Cobb. The captain is the new one. The last time they visited us, the captain has been transferred, and so this will be a new captain. And I was hoping that JJ will be here or somebody and give us a little insight, but they're not. So if you want to attend, if you're going to be there on the 15th, can you please raise your hand? Julie and I are going to be here. Dean, maybe? Okay. So we've got because I've also got Chris Marino. What?
I got 2.
2 of them what? You're going to be 2 of you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so it looks like we're going to have about 6 or 7 people there for the memorial. Now, Don Price he's unable to attend meetings because I guess he does a lot of travel on weekends and stuff. And he has requested that we induct him into the Holland Club on the 15th during that crew visit. And I agreed that I would go ahead and do that. And so we're going to be doing a Holland Club induction. They're going to be there for an hour. And then we're going to, the crew and anybody else who wants to join us are going to go to Odell's Brewing, Sloan's Lake, the restaurant about 8 blocks east of the memorial. So those people that raised your hand, are you going to also join us for our dinner? Because they have to get a good head count.
Yes.
So that's 2, maybe.
I'll let you know. I just have to hold on, let me my calendar.
Okay. So Julie, did you want to go too for dinner?
I go where you go.
That's right. I'm the driver and the guardian, right? Okay, so that's 4. That's 2, 4. I got Larry. He's going to be there next. Chris Marino and his wife are going to be there. So that's 5, 6. John, were you going to go to dinner too, or what do you think? Okay. So I'll let her know it's 6. Dan, that's a big drive for you. Yeah. You're working too. You're a working man. Okay, so I'll let her know that looks like 6 additional. 2, 4, 6, 7 additional. Possibly 9. Okay.
Oh, what is the date of that?
It is May 15th, which is this coming Thursday at 15:30. 15:30, 3:30. You gonna be there?
I might be there, you have to go on record.
How about dinner?
Probably not.
Okay, good.
13:30, right?
Yeah. 3:30. Okay. Okay, how many of you got the chance to see the pictures of our float with the new lettering and stuff? It's over here on this table, and our new lift and everything, so that we don't. It's over here, Jack. We don't have to. It's permanently mounted there. We don't have to lift it anymore. Just a push of a button, hook it up to the battery, and push of a button, and it goes all the way up. I saw you also had the stops up there too, the cables on the backside. You need it on the front too, or just the back?
I'm considering that.
Considering that. Okay, speaking of that, we have been invited, I guess is the word to say, to the Broomfield Memorial Day ceremony. It's actually on Memorial Day, the 26th. It starts at 11 o'clock in the morning. We need to be there about 10. It's going to be a static display. We're just going to have our float there with us around it, stuff, and answer questions and everything. So the guest speaker is going to be Andy. So he's going to be there. They're going to do the typical, Pledge of Allegiance and a couple speakers, and then they're actually going to give out a free lunch, hot dogs and hamburgers, and then close out the ceremony. Oh yeah, that's right. The Rocky Mountain Brass Works or something like that, right? How many people are going to attend? Would like to attend that? Okay. So it is a lot of, I've never been to it, but Gary Francis, it's actually being put on by the Veterans Museum, Broomfield Veterans Museum, which Gary is the president of right now. And he says it's a good time. Have you been to a couple?
I did Veterans Day a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's at the what they call the county commons park. It's between Sheridan and what's that other one, Bruce? Did we talk about that? Lowell, that's right. Between Sheridan and Lowell, at just south of 136th Avenue.
12 Garden Center.
Yep. Yep. And again, I'm going to put this all out so that people could, I'm going to have maps and the whole shooting match. And it looks to me like we're going to have about 6 or 7 people. I think it'll be fun because this one here, we can stop. We can be sitting on the float, talking to people, running the horn whenever we want to blast the horn, the diving alarm, and actually get a chance to talk to some people. Usually parades, you're just driving by, waving. Okay, so that is on the 26th. That's the city of Broomfield. Very excited about having us there. Now, on May 24th, if you remember the email I sent out that talked about the Colorado Freedom Memorial Park, it's located at 6th Avenue and Telluride. And they have also invited us to be a static display for what they call Colorado Remembers, and it's going to be Remembrance of World War II veterans. And so they're going to try to get some World War II veterans there. This one starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. 8 to 10 is a free breakfast, pancake breakfast, if you want to go. And then from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock is their ceremony with a special recognition of any World War II veterans. And then from 11 o'clock to 1:30, it'll be people touring the Memorial Park. And what they have is they have these huge glass walls set up along the backside of the park. And etched in those walls is all of the Colorado veterans that they know of. You can actually get your name put up there if you want by going to the website and putting your name in as a resident of Colorado. So how many people would want to go to that? It is that Saturday, the 24th. So it's Saturday, the 24th, and then Monday, the 26th for the other one. And I've already contacted Dale and Tammy, and they're going to both of them. Really, guys, it's a lot of fun to do stuff like this. You get all sorts of people talking to you, veterans and non-veterans, and you get to tell sea stories, do all sorts of stuff. So think about attending. They're a lot of fun. And again, I will put out all the information. The lady that's been in contact with me from the city said that she will give us the information on where to park, our display, and all that kind of stuff. And I'll be putting all that information out. You sure are. Okay, this is another thing I wanted to talk about, and I raised it with Willis Croft. How many here remember Willis Croft's career about Ivory Bells, that top secret thing that he was in charge of or helped with the divers? A fascinating individual. And so I wanted to let everybody know about the Library of Congress as a project that's called Veterans History Project. And all you have to do is Google Veterans History Project. And they will get you in contact with the individual here locally. And it's usually college students that are working toward some kind of degree or something. And they will actually videotape you talking about your military career. And it's real similar to what we have on our website about Clay Decker. on the sinking of the Tang. And then it'll be forever put into the Library of Congress forever. So if you are interested in something like that, all you need to do is Google Veterans, I forgot, History Project. Okay, is that interest anybody? What a dead room. Okay, the next issue to talk about is our storage tent. For some of you look real close to the pictures, you see that the back wall of our storage tent is being shredded. There are really high winds at Dale and Tammy's place, and they got a big open field on the back side of their place, and it just rips that tent apart. So we need to do a repair working party for the tent. We need to repair the back wall. And our thought process right now was pallets. We could drill or bolt pallets together with a couple supports that run from the top of the tent down, because the tent framework is really heavy gauge steel. And I think we need at least 2 additional posts in the center to help for support. And then we'll just bolt or screw in pallets together. Anybody have any other ideas on how to take care of that? Does anybody have access to pallets that are in good condition, free? One. We're going to need probably about 30. Be able, because it's about 12 feet high, or is it 15 feet high? It's 12 feet high, and it's 40 feet across. And so, Eileen, you have something, or?
Just have one, those two there.
Oh, that's a good start. I can start doing research on Facebook Marketplace, and because I've seen them people advertising pallets, but we really need to get it repaired before it goes too far. Right now, it's tearing across the top and down one side. Okay, so when we start getting some pallets, we'll try to work something out. Like I said, a dead crowd there. Okay, one final thing before we go through the different committee reports. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, that Bruce's wife Liza has come down with a stage 4 cancer, and she's going through 6 or 8 21-day cycles of chemotherapy. That's pretty rough on the body. It totally destroys the immune system. So Bruce has basically told me that he is not going to go anywhere until she's done with her chemo. And so that means we'll not see him in any of the meetings for at least 6 months or any of the events. So if people would like, I have his address and stuff. You can send him a card or something, or give him a phone call, whichever. I just wanted to let everybody know that he's going to be out for a while. That sounds like a good idea. We can do that next meeting. Okay, minutes. There's no corrections to the minutes from our last meeting as posted in our newsletter. We'll accept as is. Anybody have any corrections? No. Okay, treasurer's report. Oh. Where did I put it? There. Okay.
So for the month of April 1 to April 30th, we had a total income of $325. We had total expenses of $460.50.
$100 of which was going for painting supplies and stuff for the memorial, which that is coming to an end. So we won't have to worry about that.
Is that the slope or the memorial?
The float.
Okay.
And so they gave us a net overall total of $135.50 loss. So we'd be almost breaking even if we weren't finishing up the float. Okay. Any questions?
You want to see the full one, you have it, right?
That's right. If you want to see the full report, right here, you can come up and take a look at it anytime you want. Thank you very much.
Okay, Dan, you got something from the,
only thing I'll have in the interest of time is they are selling coins for USS VCF that on one side says U.S. Navy 250 years, because this is the 250th year of the Navy. And on the back side, it says 125 years of submarine service. I have a picture on my laptop if you want to come look at it later. Probably we'll get with Tammy if we get a good interest, because they're $14 a piece and then $5 for shipping. But if we can get a bunch of them together, it's still $5 for shipping, so we can save on it and then pay for them as they come in. So maybe next week we'll bring it up with Tammy and see if she wants to order a bunch of them.
next meeting?
Next meeting.
Okay, Tammy's not here. Patrick, you have anything? Is that high or low? Okay.
Always my request if we want people to verify that. So Facebook, I started putting the meetings in as a part of, I guess, what do they call it? Events, that's it. And then I also did a chat, simplified, favorite submarine movies. We had a couple people respond to that. If you like to contribute to those kind of chat things, it's something fun to do. More Facebook presence, I guess. So Jennifer commented on the event, like the meeting. She's seen the website, Facebook. There's some activity out there.
Good. That's what we, the Western Regional Roundup really stressed the fact that Facebook is where you get most of the contact of people. Sometimes when you're looking at Facebook, you go down and it says groups you may be interested in. And I've seen our Facebooks pop up once. Is there some way that you can have that happen more, or does that cost money, or what? Okay. Okay, we were going to have bingo on May 21st, but we've decided to cancel that because of the service. And so you're going to contact the home and let them know. That's like the first time in a couple of years that we weren't able to attend. But I do want to let you know that our next bingo is June 18th, and that's before our meeting. Okay, so our meetings are the third Saturday, and it's the third Wednesday that they have the bingo. So on June 18th will be our bingo for the month of June. I will send out emails as reminder. Yes, Eileen.
My calendar, and I definitely think the lady was here from here. She moved the June one because of this car show.
The car show is in July.
Said first on this flyer.
Holy crap.
So we're on the second Saturday event.
Yes. So I have the second Saturday in June.
I could have sworn you guys told me it was July was the car show. It does. I just assumed. Okay, so Instead of being the 21st for our meeting next month, it's going to be the 14th. Yeah, I'll get that right at the end. We'll ask for that. So let me make sure. The 14th. I'm glad you brought that up, Eileen. I spaced it.
Somebody else.
I'm still in Ireland.
You're still what?
In Ireland.
Oh yeah. Okay. That must be fun. Okay. So the bingo will be on the 18th, and I'll be able to put it out on the 14th. Jeff, do we have anything set up? I don't think Maine has much parades, do they?
Well, there's that one in Commerce City, but we did it at one time.
Well, we did it several times in the year back where they didn't charge. Now they don't charge, but you have to have an insurance policy of $1 million or something, right?
Yeah. Well,
But
already
yeah, the last time we ran it, it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
All right, so a list of parades coming up here. I'm not sure how many we want to participate in. We've got the Elizabeth Stampede on June 7th, which is going to be quite a drive for everybody with me.
Okay.
The Greeley Stampede they have a daily parade from June 25th to July 6th. They do a parade every day. So I'm
Wow.
going to do that. That's the Spark Parade. We already talked about that one. Buffalo Bill Days in Golden on July 26th. We had mixed reviews on that one.
We do. The only thing good about that was is that the guy came out with a microphone and talked to each one of us and asked us what we did on the submarine.
Yeah.
And that was kind of fun because there must have been 100 people around us and everybody who and awed when they told us.
Do that one again.
So that's a question mark, but yeah, hold on.
Douglas County Fair, July 26th. They charge $100 for a 501c3, which I guess we are not. So that would be like $350. It's run by the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, let's drop that.
Yeah. The Elbert County Fair is August 24th. There's a $10 fee for that one. That's in Iowa.
And where?
Iowa, east of Elizabeth.
That's a
Oh.
That's why I decided to Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a little far out for it.
Okay, now here's a good one. The Boulder County Fair, Saturday, August 2nd in Longmont. So
Oh, that's good for you.
Got the Wheat Ridge Carnation Festival Parade on the 9th of August. Littleton Western Welcome Week, Saturday, the 16th of August. That was a good one. That's
Saturday, 16th of August is Littleton.
Western Welcome Week.
Is that their normal parade?
Yeah.
Because they were on, okay, August 11th, you said, right?
16th.
16th?
Yeah.
Can you send me that on an email or something?
Yeah.
They start moving very good.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, now meeting on Saturday, so we're going to have some conflicts.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Okay.
The Littleton Parade was a good parade. There's a lot of people and they.
Yeah. The Windsor Harvest Days are Monday, September 1st. There's a $41.50 fee for that one.
Even military?
I just looked at their website. I don't know.
Okay.
Some of these things are so far out, they don't have a lot of.
Yeah, no.
Louisville Labor Day Parade is also September 1st.
Okay.
That'd be close. I think Dale probably has already set up the Frederick Minor Days on September 20th.
Yeah, we got a big deal about that. We've been invited to the Frederick Parade, or we already signed up for it.
Yeah.
But also the Broomfield is having their parade that same day.
I didn't put that on the list because I figured Frederick.
Well, I told them that we've done them the last 2 years, that we might want to rotate.
Okay.
And so I would like to go to the Broomfield, but the Cherry Creek School District is running their Military Appreciation Day that same day. And they also want us to attend. Patrick, that's what you went to last year, right? And you said it was a pretty good deal. It's a static display. So as we get closer to September, we're going to have to figure out whether we want to do the Broomfield Parade or the school district static parade.
Okay.
The Cherry Creek is part of Aurora, and Aurora has Buckley Air Force Base, and so they have a huge military and veteran population in the city of Aurora. So they're the ones that are doing the Freedom Park, Memorial Park on the 24th. There's the ones that do the salute to veterans that we've been to the last 3 or 4 years. And so there's a lot of that stuff. Okay, anything after September 20th?
There is, we've done this once, the reception wasn't that great, but Sheridan celebrates Saturday, September 27th. Nice lady, she keeps sending me emails.
Yeah, I know that. We went, I've been to it twice, and both times it only gets packed right at the very end.
Yeah.
And last time we went 2 years ago, as soon as you pass the stands, it just the parade just disappeared.
Yeah.
People started running all over, and we're going, well, what? So yeah, I don't like the Sheridan
I
one.
mean,
So
there are parades, you've got the parade of lights and the Denver Veterans Day parade, but that's like $300.
oh. But we do have Veterans Day ceremony in Broomfield again. You said you were there last year.
Well, I'm not speaking, but they have a Veterans Day event.
Well, out of Broomfield, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the museum.
But I don't think they're parade.
Okay, no, it's not. But yeah, it'll be a static display.
So that's what we have for parades.
Thank you much. We have to get on figuring things out on that pretty soon.
Yeah.
The UEC, I don't have a meeting until Tuesday next week, and they're voting in new members. If you kind of remember, when I first started reporting, the UBC was really active in legislation stuff. They were running all sorts of stuff going on here and there, and I was always giving out reports and getting people up to speed. Over the last year and a half or so, that's really fallen off. The leadership that was running it or have running it wasn't up to snuff. And they're having elections on Tuesday. And there's actually 2 teams that are running against each other, which is kind of unique. And so the team that I'm familiar with and I've dealt with over the last 4 or 5 years, Team Kowalski he's a retired colonel out of the Air Force. I think it's a colonel in the Air Force. Anyway, and that's who I was going to vote for, because they're going to start bringing the UBC back to what its main purpose is, and that's to benefit veterans. So does anybody have any comment, thought, discussion? You want to talk to me afterwards, and I can give you some more details on what's happening there. Okay, Memorial, we've already talked about. Float, we saw a fabulous job that Grant's been doing on that. I have to talk to Bruce about setting this up. The first Saturday of September is going to be our Memorial Day. And I just got through talking with Leslie that they're going to be able to do a taco buffet just like we had at 161.
Here.
Yeah, right here. Is that it, the 6th? September 6th. I got to get
On the 13th in my calendar. Is it the 6th?
I want to do the first Saturday. And Bruce will have to get the permit for that. Okay, the USS Colorado, we talked about that. Reese Across America is already paid for and bought in the whole shooting match. Deadline for, okay, good of the order. Deadline for reporting to the newsletter is May 26th. Remember, if you're an American Legion member and haven't switched from 161 to 17, please do so. this is a major way of helping them. We've had over between 20 and 25 guys switch over. So to them, it's a huge boost. Grant and I replaced the flag at the memorial. If anybody notices the flag is starting to get tattered or torn, please let us know so we can replace it again. Did everybody get that email about national and the email scams where somebody is emailing you and telling them that they need you to send a gift card for donate this or donate that? So those are all scams. National is not going to send anything like that to you.
Somebody's hacked into our email list too, because I get stuff.
Do you?
Yeah.
I haven't received anything. They usually go after the officers, you know.
Yeah.
What have you been getting?
Scam when I first get it, but it's like it's coming from the Rocky Mountain base, but it's some obscure thing.
Yeah, if you look at it, it'll say Rocky Mountain Base, and then you actually look at the email address that it's coming from, and it's not anything close to Rocky Mountain Base. Probably somewhere in India or something like that.
Usually a Gmail address.
Gmail, is it? Okay. The time and date will be the 14th, June 14th, for our next meeting. What to eat? What do you guys want to eat? We've done the hamburgers and fries, and we've done the burritos, and we've done what was some of the other ones we did? Now, is that something people want to do for a lunch? I don't think they do fried chicken. That's tough to do. They have a deep fryer, but yeah. So how many, does anybody have any objection to the meatloaf and mashed potatoes and a veggie? No objection. Jack, you have something?
I thought you were. Chicken nuggets.
Okay, so we'll go for that. And we have new cards. Has everybody got your new cards with the new information? I haven't. You don't? Where are you been? See me afterwards. I'll get them. We have them in storage. I forgot to pull them out, put it on the table here. The only thing we need to help with cleanup is these two tables need to be moved back there. That table needs to be moved. And then we can leave the chairs and tables as they sit. They'll put them up on the table later after this evening. I keep seeing her looking there, so we need to get out of here. 50-50.
Are you ready? Three digits. 428.
Oh, hey, come on. Hey. Yay, Claudia. Okay. Okay, now let's leave this quiet, tranquil life that we've known in the deep and return to reality of surface. Surface. Myra?
Right. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for our meeting, first the decisions made, and we just ask you to take us all home safely, watch over us until our next meeting. And we just ask that you would be with our men and women that are protecting this country in the different military services. We just ask that you would give them successful missions and keep them safe. And Lord, bless our country. We just ask all this in your name. Amen.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Adjourn, second, so moved. Just remember that some of us are gonna be sitting in the lounge for a couple